What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and today we're going to talk about the Dead Space remake, but not necessarily this one. There have been rumors that we were going to get a Dead Space 2 remake. This first game is incredibly freaking perfect. I gave it a 10 out of 10 when I reviewed it. I ended up doing 5 separate playthroughs on every single difficulty. It was one of those games that when you played this first Dead Space remake, it was clearly lovingly crafted. I mean, every single part of the new weapon tweaks, the new storylines, just every part of it was incredibly good, but everybody, of course, was thinking, okay, what happens next? Well, today we got some leaks. A big official leak that the Dead Space 2 remake is canceled so that EA can focus on making more Battlefield DLC and apparently an Iron Man game. But let's take a look at the evidence and talk about this, because honestly, I am extremely disappointed. Let's get into it. Hi, I hope you're having a great day. If you could, give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. By the way, there's about to be another video that's posting on this YouTube channel today where I look totally different. I technically filmed it like a week ago, so don't pay attention to the fact when I talk about that secret project, my face looks a little bit different. But okay, so here is the leak itself. This is Jeff Grubb, the king of leaks himself. He talks about a lot of stuff that probably he's not supposed to talk about. And a lot of times he does his leaks on his morning show, Game Mess Mornings. Let's start things off by listening to what he says about this entire, mess.
Like, what the hell is going on over at EA? So they said that they're going to be a 2-project team going forward, and that is going to be Iron Man and Battlefield. Lex Luddy, what does that leave out that came out last year? Does that leave out like maybe a Dead Space game? Literally
the second I saw this was, oh, we're never getting that Dead Space 2 remake, are we?
So they were working on it. They were working on Dead Space 2, and they are no longer working on it. It is on the shelf because the first game had lackluster sales, is how it was phrased to me.
We're going to get into that in depth, but man, do I hate this concept. We're going to shred that apart here in a second. Let me let him finish.
Yeah, so if you were looking forward to a Dead Space 2, it's bad news. It straight up is just bad news. Does this mean it never happens? I don't know if that's the case, but as it stands right now, they were working on it. It was in the concepting phase, I believe, something like it was definitely in pre-production. And now that work has been put on the shelf.
I get frustrated because I feel like the sales expectations of a lot of these projects are just too ridiculous. I have been talking about this now for like 10 years, but there's been so many times where a game comes out and sells millions and millions of copies, but isn't profitable enough. In fact, I noticed a lot of the replies are pointing out the fact that Dead Space was the second best selling game of January 2023. If you're one of the biggest games of the month, if you're that popular, how is that not big enough? Look, a lot of people are being like, okay, I thought it was sold well. This is so bizarre. So there's a big budget Iron Man game being made. Okay, I don't like the character, but that could be good. Yeah, so I'm not even necessarily bagging on the fact that they're going to be making other stuff. An Iron Man game could be awesome. You know, flying around, shooting lasers, I'm definitely on board with it, but I decided to tweet this out as well because I am just still stunned that a game that is so good with a team that is so passionate, that is so proven with their skill would get canned. And a lot of people actually were talking specifically about the price point. The price point killed it. I assume that's a typo there. A lot of people are being like, hey, this is something interesting. I did notice apparently on PC, it ran incredibly bad at launch, so people saying it was a broken, unplayable mess. I did not experience that. But again, this price point comes up again and again. If the Dead Space remake was cheaper than $60 when it came out, it would have done much better. Remasters and remakes should always be more budget-friendly unless it's a complete total overhaul like FF7. Okay, well, Here's my frame of mind. The Dead Space remake is a total overhaul, even if it doesn't necessarily look like it with tons of like wide-ranging, totally different stuff. Even though it is a brick-for-brick rebuild, it was a remake. It had a new engine, it has new lighting, it has new jump scares, it's got new systems, and so even though it doesn't feel like it's that experimental or that different from the original, it is technically a full-blown remake and not just a remaster. But I almost feel like, again, this is something I literally talked about in a video yesterday. This is the thing that sucks about the fact that budgets are getting so incredibly out of control. This game looks good, it plays good, but how many hundreds of millions of dollars did it take? And how many hundreds of millions of dollars were they expecting them to generate? This is another part of it, though, which is that so many of these publishers now, so many of these major studios expect an instant return on their investment. They're like, okay, like I have actually personally heard, I've had a chance to sit down and talk face to face with developers off the record. So I'm not going to say their name, but a lot of times they've said they'll be making a game and it's going along great. Everything's coming together. And then some part of like the company marketing will say, okay, we're going to spend $50 million on commercials. How many copies of the game do you think you can sell? And they'll say that before the game is even finished. Now, of course, that makes sense on paper because, you know, they've got to actually start spinning up the marketing so they can get pre-orders, so they can get hype, so they can get that content cycle going. I'm not even fully blaming marketing, but it is that weird thing of thinking like the industry has gotten so big, so out of control that it's like, okay, if your game is not the biggest title of the year, your team might be dissolved or put onto other projects. Now, personally, I was hoping this would be like the FF7 remake, where FF7 Remake Part 1 did not sell. Like FF7 Remake Part 1 did not necessarily sell like 1 billion copies, but it was successful enough, and now we're getting the full FF7 Remake trilogy. So even if the second part of it, Rebirth, also did not sell well, they're going to sell forever. Here's my thought. A lot of video games now are not just flash in the pan experiences. They have what's called a long tail. These games sell forever. They're always being talked about. They're always being bought. I guess I just hate the fact that it feels like this industry more and more, even though the conversation around games is that these are art, they have such good like experiences and stories and music, but everything is treated so disposable. Developers can be fired. They can be replaced. They can be automated. And every piece of art, if it's not immediately freaking Avatar The Last Airbender billion-dollar project, it immediately gets thrown away. Stuff like this is just disheartening to me because personally, I am annoyed by this. I wanted a Dead Space Remake Part 2, and I voted with my wallet. I talk about this constantly. Vote with your wallet. Buy the games that you want to see more of. If you want to support it, actually support it with cash in hand. And sometimes even then, it just doesn't work out. I do hope we get a Dead Space Remake 2 someday, but honestly, I was hoping it would get revealed this year and released next year. The fact that it's probably not getting released at all, that's just such a huge EAL. But what do you guys think about this? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. God, what an L. Another EAL. Jesus. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.